The California wildfires are estimated to be between 40 and 65 billion dollars Canadian. Most people don't understand about the carbon tax is that the government is not allowed to spend 1 cent of that on general spending. If you are heavily invested in the current infrastructure and you don't want to see it change, and that is a real thing in Canada. Again, 22% of our GHG or greenhouse gases come from the oil and gas industry.
The stuff that your company is doing, on top of it's a business, you guys have a mission, and it's a very clean one. Hey, Greg, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining.
Hey, my pleasure, Andre. Good to see you.
I want to jump in and I want to give you kind of the stage to introduce yourself and the unique stuff that yourself and your team and your group of companies are doing. So I'll kind of give you the stage to kind of introduce yourself.
Sure, sounds good. So my name is Greg Sommers. I'm the president of a group of companies. We have 3 under our banner now. EcoGrid Technologies, which has made a really significant name for itself in turnkey energy efficiency solutions, especially smart LED lighting, digital controls, power factor correction, and pushing very heavily right now into something called EMIS, or Energy Management and Information Systems. Very exciting field in the commercial industrial space right now. Our second company is EcoGrid Renewables. Has made a significant splash, especially in Ontario, in the solar energy and renewable energy business. We currently are constructing the 2 single largest commercial industrial solar rooftop deals in Ontario ever. So that's fun and been a pretty wild ride. And then we have ASCII, which is our third company, is an AI cloud-based platform for carbon accounting, utility bill management, and actually ties back into the 2 other companies as a dashboard interface for the EMIS systems for solar IoT monitoring, and a number of other proprietary and unique fun things coming down the development pipeline here.
All right, very, very exciting. And again, as I would love to kind of dig into each one of them. But again, the time that we have, it's not enough for kind of a one video for us to kind of do together to introduce, because there's each one of the parts that you touch, there is so much to discuss, because I find it to be not a very common knowledge for a lot of people about the benefits of the services you provide and solutions in the end of the day that most companies are not aware. And as me and you discussed before, that we're going to do kind of a sessions of a few videos together that will be able to kind of touch each one of them and the benefits, and also how your team will be able to help them and to be kind of ahead of the curve in this area. Because with all the changes that's happening right now in the economy, not only in Canada, but also in the States, the stuff that you guys are dealing with is very, very relevant right now and can help a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. I call the energy transition right now the most optimistic place on the planet. We're seeing incredible traction, growth of economy, and as you mentioned, what's happening with the States and possible trade disputes between Canada and the States, the United States, and basically everywhere else. Insulation from volatility is also at the top of the list of many companies right now. So we're seeing incredible traction and incredible growth, and it's a very exciting time to be in the energy transition. All 3 of my companies really affect that in, as you say, in different ways. I could speak to hours on each, or we could literally sit here and talk to hours just on what's happening with trade, with energy transition, carbon tax.
So let's do that.
Etc.
How you feel? Pretty much, we're in the middle of a trade war. Different type of trade wars, to be honest, because there is a trade war between the States and Canada. On top of that, Our economy is not in the best condition. We're in the middle of revolutions on the technology side that also affecting a lot of facilities and a lot of companies on the growth. Some of them are not able to get up to speed. As well, there is the green side of everything that is a requirement right now. Like a lot of stuff is happening. Like people kind of, you see, again, when there is kind of a lot of fog in the air, is pretty much there is two things. There is the companies that's dropping and kind of crashing in a way, and the company that kind of rising from that. I find that there is huge opportunities and options right now to grow because what happened. It's not all bad. There is always when something happened, there is something new that is growing. But again, you're working on most of the other clients that you deal with that, and the people that you work with them to implement kind of all the green technology, if it's from the solar, if it's also from the new software you guys are doing that is very revolutionary and innovative in the way that you guys approach that will help. You're working kind of again from government, municipalities, the top tiers of companies and factories. Like, what do you feel kind of on the stuff that happen day to day? How does it affect them?
You know, before we actually talk about what's the mood, if you will, within the economy and across North America, I'd say we even have to go back farther than that. I mean, to set up right now and say Trump getting elected and this trade war and the fear of tariffs is all of a sudden the mood of North America, I think that does an injustice to what we've really experienced over the last 5, 6, 10 years. You know, we came out of COVID. We had supply chain issues across the world.
Mm-hmm.
We had this fear of a world-ending recession for many years. That never really transpired, but as you say, our economies have been somewhat fragile for quite a while now. So
Yep.
going into this trade war, going into the fear of these tariffs, we have that history, we have that experience. And really what I'd say is we also have a thick skin. When the 25% was coming down the pipeline, I thought I'd be out in the marketplace talking to clients with a lot of fear that we would have a pullback on investment and we better wait and see what's going to go on before we pull the trigger on
Yeah.
any more investment across our facilities or anything like that. That's not what's transpired. Even when I've talking to steel manufacturers, I had a couple meetings this week with some different steel companies. One of them being aluminum, and
Mm-hmm.
they're getting hit with a 25% tariff, and they were kind of not laughing it off. It's stressful, but they were saying this is just what it is. They said we're
Yep.
still going to be selling our product in the States. America couldn't possibly create enough aluminum in the next 10 years to satisfy its demand even close. So it's buying from other places, whether it's Canada or China or anywhere else, it has to import a lot of aluminum. So they're still going to be selling their
Yeah.
product and they understand that. Now, is it going to be stressful? Is there going to be some pullback? Probably. They don't really know. Would they choose to not have tariffs? Of course. But the product is still going
Yeah.
to sell in the
Obvious.
United States. Now, it's not to diminish, though, the companies that are going to get rolled quite heavily. And there are some. But most people are looking at this as there's going to be 4 years of volatility coming out of the States, one way or the other. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
new wars. There's going to be more natural disasters. There's going to be things coming down the pipeline. We've been experiencing it. We're still experiencing it. It doesn't mean you put the brakes on forward thinking and you don't get
Mm-hmm.
into a turtle shell and just wait it out because there's nothing to wait out. This is life.
Yeah. But also, in the end of the day, the person who is going to get hurt the most from all of these changes is the end customer, because he's
Correct.
the one is actually going to be carrying all these increases in the end of the day. So yes, the factory is going to buy the material higher. They're going to sell it for more money. They have to keep their margin. At start will be adjustment, and then the facility that kind of processing it will start raising it, and the installer. And in the end of the day, it's coming back to the end client. So that again, they will
And
pay much more. So technically, everybody's
I
suffering
think
from it.
Yeah, I think Canada has done a very good job of vocalizing down to the South. What these tariffs are really going to do is raise prices in America, right? Now, we are going to have reciprocating tariffs. We're not going to just roll over and let you affect our economy. So there's going to be reciprocating effects in Canada, and it's not going to be just a cakewalk in Canada. But I think Canada has done a fairly good
Hmm.
job of reaching out to the governors and to the business leaders into the states, and they're very well aware. I remember reading an article a couple of weeks ago, and don't quote me on the numbers, but Montana was looking at effectively a 2,600% increase to their corporate tax because of tariffs, because of the amount of products that they bring in from Canada. Kentucky, Florida, all of these states know very well what these tariffs are going to do. So is it a negotiating tactic? I don't really think so. I think this is kind of what Trump wants to do is create this kind of chaos, and he thinks it's going to deliver for his country. But I think most people around him understand that, to your point, Andre, it's the American consumer that is going to be hit worst by these tariffs.
Yeah, yeah. But again, with everything bad that's happening, there is also positive. Because, everybody that's speaking about the tariffs, talking only about the bad, about how bad it's going to be, the price is going to increase and everything. But it's not only bad. Again, good things can happen from it. Our economy can actually get restructured faster because of that disconnections. Canada can become a much more powerful and wealthy country than what we are right now if we won't be dependable on our friends from the South. Again, from the aluminum that is going through their stuff. If it's not going to come to them, it's going to make us stronger. There is other countries we can actually trade with and that will love to have our resources. And it can help us to build our own infrastructure. I think maybe Canada was working a lot with the States because it was easier, it's closer, it's convenient, but maybe it's not necessarily the right way.
To that point, in my industry, in the energy transition and renewable energy, nothing has changed the fact, whether we have tariffs or not, Canada is actually dead last in the G7 in terms of our energy intensity, so how much energy we use per capita. And we're also dead last in our CO2 emissions in the G7 per capita. So we had the farthest room to go. Whether Trump believes in climate change or the Americans want to put tariffs on, that's not changing that fact. We have the farthest room to grow. That creates also opportunity. There's a tremendous opportunity in our country right now in the energy transition. 18.1% of our entire energy usage across our country goes into oil and gas extraction. 22% plus of our total greenhouse gases comes from the oil and gas sector. We have an amazing opportunity in this country. One, because we have the farthest room to go, but two, also because we do have very innovative and intelligent people in this country that realize the opportunity that energy transition is bringing. So, to your point, there is amazing opportunity. There was amazing opportunity before Trump got elected. There's amazing opportunity after, whether there's tariffs or not. In my industry, we are seeing incredible traction. We're seeing companies realize the financial benefits of investing in their own energy efficiency and energy generation. And that's not going to slow down. If anything, that's going to speed up with or without American participation. Whatever they decide to do down there, we do know that at some point in time, a different government is going to get elected in the United States, and there will be a pendulum swing back. And unfortunately, they're undoing a lot of the gains they've made in the energy transition. So that means they're going to have farther to go again. If we're in a situation where, as we are right now, we actually trade a lot of energy back and forth in the United States. If we're in a situation where in 4 years or 8 years or whatever it ends up being, America is all of a sudden again hungry and has an appetite for carbon reduction, if we have a very clean grid and we have products that we're producing with low emissions because we have adopted a lot of renewable energy, our grids have gotten cleaner, that's a tremendous opportunity then to feed that hunger. Again, maybe it's 4 years, maybe it's 8 years, but it's current in Europe, it's current in Asia, it will be current again at some point in time in the United States. So we do have opportunity, and my industry, I believe, is poised, ready to take advantage of that.
And I think he's also going to come with a new spirit of a different type of Canada that actually support business owners, give us something like support us as well, that we want to put the money over here, that we want to kind of to grow it over here. And all the time we're comparing it to, again, to our friends in the South, that it's so much easier over there. There is more rules that is kind of on your benefits of as a company, as an owner, that it's easier. There's even a joke that if you succeed with a company in Canada, when you move to the States, it'll be super easy because you're able to succeed in Canada. It's much, much harder. But why should it be so hard?
No, but truthfully, Andre, I'm actually quite optimistic about what's been happening in our country in terms of regulation. And again, I have a singular opinion coming from climate change mitigation. Listen, if you don't believe in climate change and the effects of human activity on the environment, and that it's creating a cause and effect around the world, then you're never going to believe in any stats that can suggest otherwise. But the truth is climate change is real. We've had, I believe it's 19 months in a row now of record-setting world temperatures. We've had increasing natural disasters around the planet. The California wildfires are estimated to be between 40 and 65 billion dollars Canadian. Canada last year in 2024 had a record number of insurance payouts to the tune of $8.55 billion, mostly because of Jasper wildfires, flooding in the east, large natural disasters that can be directly linked to climate change. So if you factor $8.55 billion across an approximated 27 million average households in Canada, that's $300 a year just from that 1 year in insurance buyouts. I grew up mostly in the West, Alberta and BC. I spent time in Fort McMurray and saw the wildfire devastation there. I grew up a lot in Jasper, spent a lot of my childhood memories came from Jasper. So I have emotional connection there. BC, from where I'm at, I still have family living in the interior of BC. Every single summer, our entire skyline is just smoke. The BC has literally been on fire every single summer for the last 20 years. This is not slowing down, this is speeding up. So when we talk about economy and we talk about the energy transition, you mentioned business owners and regulations. One thing I talk to business owners all the time about, whether we're talking about increasing your efficiency through LED lighting or generating your own energy through solar or simply being able to report carbon outwards, business comes down to risk mitigation. If you're going to own and operate a business, you need to mitigate that risk, right? You need to mitigate the risk of taxes. You need to mitigate the risk of outrageous costs, inefficiencies, things like that. So risk mitigation is a large part of what I speak to about business owners. And when we look at what's happening with climate change, we also need to be speaking about risk mitigation. What is the economic impact of 1 degree, 1.5 degree, 2 degree increases? The amount of money that would cost if Miami floods, for example, on a yearly basis, right? Those are the economic risks that we need to start taking into this consideration in this conversation, not just short term on what are my taxes and what is my risk today, but what is my risk tomorrow?
You always have to think about the future. You always in a way, I don't as much care about what's going on now because I'm always working on something further that is going to happen, and I have to see the trends that are happening. And it's not about only the market. It's not only about the consumer. There is also other stuff of it. It's about kind of the locations and kind of what's happening with the environment. And it's not only about what car I'm going to drive, if it's going to be taxed more or taxed less. It's coming out to be much, much bigger. And also, there is a little bit of miss of the education where to get it. Because let's take the carbon tax, for example. Okay? Everybody's talking about the carbon tax. I take you as a person that specializes in that area. How many people actually know what is mean when you say the carbon tax?
I would say less than 1% understand how the mechanics of the carbon tax work and the impacts that it actually has on them individually, household, or business.
And I think that is the basic of a lot of stuff, because there is always a fear to say, let's say if I will be in a meeting with you and you come to approach me about the ASCII product, for example, and you're going to say, all right, this is the benefit about carbon tax and everything. And the business owner sitting on the other side of the table with you will be somewhere ashamed to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Explain to me, how does it actually affect me? And creating a gap.
Yeah, the problem is not that people are unwilling to voice any ignorance they may have. The problem is that as human natures, we hear snippets of information that fit our belief system, and then we broadcast that out as our knowledge. Out on my driveway about a month or two ago and talking to one of my neighbors, and he was talking about I think Trudeau had just announced resigning, and we were talking about a conservative government possibly getting in, with the new election. And he was voicing his opinions about the carbon tax and how much he supported the tax. And his basis for this belief was inflation. And he started talking to me about how much the carbon tax had to do with inflation. That the majority of inflation that we'd experienced over the last couple of years had to do with carbon tax. And he voiced it with such conviction and belief. And I know he'd heard it somewhere, some kind of echo chamber that fit his belief system. I didn't blame him, but I did. And you're right, I do know some of these things. So I let him know that actually those numbers have been released. The Bank of Canada has stated that it's negligible. It's 0.15% of inflation has to do with carbon tax. It has to do with supply chain. It has to do with Russia. It has to do with food prices because of inputs on the fertilizers and whatnot. Again, all to do with war, disasters, everything. And a lot of it had to do with COVID and supply chain. But it has very, very little to do with carbon tax. But there is a belief out there that is truth. And it's hard for people to go and want to investigate the truth themselves because they hear something that fits that belief system and they move forward. I was talking to my grandmother in Alberta probably about a year ago, and my grandmother was griping about the Liberal government at the time, and again, the carbon tax. And she was saying that her energy bills had gone through the roof. They were absolutely skyrocketing. And she wasn't wrong. Electricity prices in Alberta really skyrocketed over the last couple of years, especially in Alberta. They in around Edmonton area, they have some of the highest costs of electricity in the entire country. And again, she was saying that this entirely had to do with Justin Trudeau's and the Liberals' carbon tax. Once again, a complete fallacy. The federal carbon tax does not actually affect Alberta electricity prices. The Alberta carbon tax contributes about 1 cent per kilowatt hour to their bill. That's less than 5%. Alberta prices are in the high 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So to have 1 cent attributed to the Alberta carbon tax, I'm not saying it's not a cost. What I'm saying is that the belief system that it is this massive burden is untrue. Some kind of auditor for Canada released the numbers on carbon tax inputs or effects on households because we pay a carbon tax and then we also get a credit. Everybody gets the carbon tax credits. And there's still a cost. Right now, the average household in Canada, after reclaiming some of these rebates from carbon tax, it still costs us about $400 a year for the carbon tax. By 2030, carbon tax is going to continue to go up. On April 1st, it goes up again. By 2030, that's going to increase to about $700 of an actual cost center per household around Canada. And again, I'm not trying to suggest that it's not a cost, that's not a burden. And that for some households, $400 or $700 is a significant increase.
Exactly. Yep.
But what I wish people would be able to do is investigate the reality of the facts. Their food prices have gone up significantly more than that. Their rent prices have gone up significantly more than that. It is a drop in the bucket compared to the inflation of everything else. And again, when I said, we paid out $8.55 billion in insurance claims last year, that's the equivalent of $300 per home, just that alone of those natural disasters. So as natural disasters and climate change start to impact the economy more and more and more, to ignore that and simply say there's no tax, there's no incentive to change your behavior is kind of like going back to the 70s and 80s and saying we're not going to tax cigarettes and affect our healthcare costs because it's not really our place to affect. Of course, there was a lot of complaint about taxing cigarettes, but the cost of healthcare started to become such a burden for our overall economy and overall society that it was a behavior that we needed to start to change. And yes, it's manipulation of human behavior. And that's exactly what the carbon tax is designed to do. And it is actually doing a fairly significant job of it. It is creating a carrot and stick effect. It is punishing the creation of carbon emissions. And when you drive, when you turn your lights on, when you do anything, there are carbon emissions. So it is penalizing that. But there's also an incentive program. Most people don't understand about the carbon tax is that the government is not allowed to spend 1 cent of that on general spending. So right now there is a 30% investment tax credit for commercial solar. I said this is the most optimistic place on earth. We have the 2 largest commercial solar rooftop deals in Ontario ever on the go right now. Solar is absolutely gaining massive traction and having huge effects on our grid relief and on our carbon emissions around Ontario, around Alberta, around Canada. And a lot of that is due to incentivization from the federal government and now even provincial governments. And that has to do with the federal carbon tax. That's where that money is coming from. So there's both a carrot and a stick effect, and it is having traction. And I'm not here trying to advocate for the carbon tax as it all is. What I'm trying to say is that the fear that is being generated, that the carbon tax is having a huge detrimental effect on people's lives, I would argue is completely false, number one. And number two, is actually gaining momentum and having huge effects on long-term carbon emissions. So unless you believe that climate change is not actually real, then having an effect on carbon reduction through these taxation policies and through these incentivizations seems to me going backwards.
Yeah. And also, I think, again, with the carbon, because there is the misinformation, and you say that people are taking pieces because it's faster. They don't have to do the research to understand it. Again, politicians to different type of organizations are doing a spin on it as a marketing thing because people doesn't really know it, so they can spin it anywhere they want about what is the benefit. And
100%.
yeah, it's a marketing thing in the end of the day because again, there is a saying, it's like a broken telephone. Because I'll tell you a story, you're going to tell it to the next person, you're going to take it to the next person. Stuff has been added, stuff has been removed. And that kind of the information there is. But it's also the same thing about let's say take about the solar, okay? Yes, solar has huge benefits. For the type of companies, they're thinking long term. There's no immediate benefit, right? That coming from that one. You're kind of building for the future of again, you can income, reduce also your expenses, and you're utilizing unutilized space technically by installing the units. But a lot of people thinking or they can't or it's not possible even before they kind of are checking, or they don't know the even benefit that coming from the government that's supporting it, as you said, to kind of reduce and to kind of install the units. So there is a big place that I see about education, how stuff that is available. It's pretty much on the shelf for people to kind of to take and to use and to implement. But again, the education piece is missing because people assume a lot of stuff.
And they're not necessarily wrong, but things are constantly changing. So if there was no government incentivization or financial recompense from either federal or provincial governments in Canada, then the return on your investment to do a commercial solar rooftop deal is still going to be 8, 9, 10 years. That's a non-starter for most businesses because I can take my dollars and I can invest it in my company in a new piece of machinery or a new investment, and I should be able to count on 10% return for an internal rate of return or IRR. That's a metric that I like to use in any investment is what's my IRR here. If I'm going to be looking at an 8 or 9 or 10 year ROI, it's going to be a non-starter for me. But through the federal and now provincial incentives that we're seeing across Canada, what we're looking at for these commercial rooftop deals is often in the 3-year ROI now, and between 20, 25, and pushing 30% internal rate of return.
That's crazy.
These are smart business decisions, right? I tell my team all the time, listen, if you want to have an effect on climate change mitigation, don't go get the companies that love solar to put solar on their roof. They're already going to do it. Go find the business person who doesn't necessarily care that much about climate change. They've got a business to run. They've got shareholders to answer to. Find them and show them that they have an investment opportunity for their facility and for their business that's going to return them 25 to 30% internal rate of return. And at the same time, through capitalization rates, going to increase their property value 3-to-1, 4-to-1, sometimes 5-to-1 ratio of that investment dollar,
Yeah.
show them that that is such a smart investment for them and get them to put solar on the roof. And they never would have had they not met you, because they don't care about solar, or they have other belief systems that, it doesn't fit into. Find those business owners, get rooftop solar for them, and that's how you're going to really change. And that's what we're seeing across Canada right now. We are seeing that kind of traction. They're not putting solar on their roofs because they want to necessarily do their part. And I'm not suggesting, I should be careful. They do want to do their part. 91% of business owners have stated to the BDC that it can be profitable to reduce their environmental impact. So they do want to do their part, but they're not going to make a business decision and invest millions of dollars sometimes into something that has a 10-year ROI if it doesn't make sense. But with government intervention and through these incentivization programs, that's what we're seeing now. If somebody's listening to this and saying, so this is where all my tax money is going to support businesses to do this,
No.
what they also need to understand is the long-term effects to their pocketbook, that risk mitigation. Ontario is the best example for this right now. We had an incredibly clean and stable electricity grid. And because of a number of political decisions over several decades, we fell way behind the curve. We were a net exporter of power for years, up until about 2 years ago. Now we're a net importer of power. We are facing major supply and demand issues on our electricity grid. So you're talking billions upon billions of dollars of infrastructure need in the province. And you can either do that by building more nuclear, which we're doing some right now. You can build more natural gas plants, which have huge risk attributed to it, again, because of carbon taxation, climate change, and just volatility of that commodity. Or you can incentivize large demand customers, so the big factories, the commercial industrial clients who use a lot of energy to create the products that you use. You can incentivize them to reduce that demand, to start to generate some of their own energy. And the economics of that is far more efficient than building large generation stations and then having to transport that across infrastructure that is antiquated in the province. So it's not just a taxation scheme taking the taxpayers' money and giving it to the companies. You are helping the long-term cost of the ratepayers in Ontario. And this is also the case in Alberta, Saskatchewan, everywhere else. This is smart economics to invest in a green economy. It creates risk mitigation for our energy usage, for our environment, and for our businesses.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, by the government giving a benefit for a factory to utilize its roof in a way to generate more energy, it does help for the taxpayer. Because 100%. Then that units will be separating in that demographic and geographic location, that part of the infrastructure. So by utilizing the business that is able to invest it, it's actually the government helping then the end user, the consumer, of spending it from his own money or from his own taxes, or coming against something that he needed. So technically, you cannot say that the government is taxpayers is going to the government. Actually, the government is utilizing the businesses for the civilian in the end of the day, in a way to kind of help to build the infrastructure. And that is a big, again, everybody think about green energy, saying, all right, I'm driving an electric car. Okay, what is the biggest problem with driving electric cars? There is no infrastructure. Like the biggest fear of everybody move to electric, we don't have enough power for everybody. And it's a major, major problem. So we need that factories in a way that we'll be able to do that. We need kind of it's a teamwork that has to be done. In a teamwork, there is I'll give you and then I'll take, and utilizing each other's benefits and what every person can bring into the team together to create it. And it's not about the government giving the money for the big manufacturers and the businesses and everything. Actually, if we'll be honest, it's about the government utilizing the businesses for their own needs. And this is what kind of they're doing. Because at the end of the day, the factories are the ones spending the money, not the government. They're just giving the tax benefit from it in a way and giving them the options of return and everything as a program. but the factories still have to put the money up, or to take the loan or the mortgage or whatever. They have to finance it themselves.
I would also argue that it's about creating economy.
I agree.
Whether you're talking about your individual life or business or the economy and GDP of a country, there is nothing static, right? There is typically and often explosive growth, and then there's subtraction. It's literally you are either literally growing or you are dying. And in the 50s, when we were really investing in an oil-based economy, North America did extremely well. It was growing very, very fast. It was developing new economies, new products, and investing in infrastructure across North America. We have that opportunity again right now. You just mentioned EVs. That infrastructure does not exist. So when we are creating that infrastructure, what we are doing is we are innovating. We are creating new companies. We're creating new jobs. We're creating money flow throughout the economy through business loans and grants and all sorts of economy is building and growing. As long as we don't rely on other countries to develop and innovate and build these things for us, and then we just buy them and bring them over here, we have an amazing opportunity to create economy. Yep. The only realistic argument against it is if you are heavily invested in the current infrastructure and you don't want to see it change. And that is a real thing in Canada. Again, 22% of our GHG or greenhouse gases come from the oil and gas industry. That is our biggest economy in this country. So if you are heavily invested in that, it is a scary proposition to steer away from it, to start getting alternate sources of energy, to start finding alternate exports to go to other countries. And I don't think anybody's arguing that, well, not many people are arguing that we should just turn that entire economy off. But again, with risk mitigation, it's somewhat silly, in my opinion, to just keep going down that road. We do need alternates. We do need to plan for climate change. We do need alternate sources. But more importantly, for this conversation, this is just smart economics. Investing 100%. In new infrastructure is good economics.
But also keep in mind, with all the respect for the existing infrastructure of oil and gas, but also the oil and gas need the electric infrastructure. Because in the end of the day, where you have, let's say, a pump that is pumping the oil out, outside of it there is a generator that is running to the machine. What is the source for that generator? A solar panel above it. So it's a one thing that kind of need the others, because they have to be connected also with the network. The oil company can actually track exactly what is coming out. If there is issues, there is powers. Again, these locations that is coming, some of them are in the middle of nowhere. They don't have infrastructure over there, so they're using actually solar for that. I think everything is going hand to hand, because if you want to create now more gasoline cars, you need electric. Electric is your biggest consumer to that factory to create that product that will be a consumer of that product. It's one thing need the other in the end of the day. And it's not against each other necessary.
Well, and that's exactly right. And if you take a balanced approach to this conversation, then that's an obvious truth. I work with a lot of plastics companies. Plastics companies are some of the most forward-thinking in terms of the energy transition and adopting greener practices. They are effectively oil and gas type derivative. In order to make plastic, you need oil. We're always going to need oil as a feedstock to our construction materials, our plastics. It goes into most of our products. What we need to do is stop burning it, right? And we have great alternatives to it. And we have an amazing opportunity, especially in Canada, because again, we have the farthest to go in the G7. We have an amazing opportunity for the next 10, 15 years to put our economy effectively on steroids. We can start being very innovative and really attack this thing and create jobs, create exports, create innovation. As I said, I view this as the most optimistic place on earth. I'm seeing tremendous traction. My companies are certainly benefiting from this. Personally, from a satisfaction level, I'm very much enjoying seeing what's happening out there. And I would invite anybody to check their facts when they're told something that is counter to that, because the facts are there. It's all easy for people to find, and
Hmm.
typically it's fear that drives people away from smart economics. It's simply saying you're unhappy because this person is making you do that thing,
Yeah.
uh, but that's not the reality of what's happening in the energy transition.
But I think let's say if we can take something kind of from this meeting of us together, this podcast, uh, I think the biggest thing we can give as an education piece is actually education. And this is kind of what's there, our idea together is to creating kind of that kind of series of videos of that we're going to go deep dive to every section and creating like kind of no bullshit. What is this all about? What is the benefit? How again your companies are able to help people, but only help them also for the different version you said. Yes, you're going to help them how they can be reducing their tax, be more as a green company. But from the other side, you're saying, all right, but this is also I can make money. So it's kind of very wide audience that you can help. The one that kind of a very it's important for them to save the tax and to be green, but in the end of the day, everybody will save money. Like the reason a company won't go ahead with that investment if they're hitting all these checkpoints on the way. It's a no-brainer. And just to understand how they can need to do it, but not piecing their information by the he said, she said in a way, actually, but the real truth there is. And this is again, this is what you and your team specialize. But I want to kind of break the wall in between them that people understand that this thing is available. And this is happening right now if people want it or not. We need it. Our world is the way of the technology is going. We're based on electricity. We don't have the infrastructure. So it's not about if we want to kind of do it, we're doing it already. People just need to kind of jump aboard and keep pushing and to understand it's a benefit. Again, over the years, we got educated. We know that some stuff that we did is not positive for our world. We're seeing it right now with the effects of the climate change and everything. We see the stuff is changing. How we went again in Toronto last year, we didn't get any snow. This year, again, it's crazy. Like again, I live in Canada for 13 years, and I was actually thinking to my wife yesterday, I'm like, if 13 years ago when I came, it was this kind of winter, I would be doing a U-turn. I'm like, I'm out. It's not for me. It's too cold. And but it's crazy, and you can see it, and it's not changing slowly. It's changing rapidly. Everything, economy, the environment, everything, and it's a bad thing. But again, good things can happen. But we can create a lot of knowledge and educate over here people how I can do it. Because in the end of the day, yeah, you own three businesses and it's a business for profit, but you're helping people how to create something for something that is existing, that is available for them. It's not a product that here we go, take it and you have to figure out how we're going to work with that or investment that maybe you're going to make. It's a hardcore investment. It's a need. It's not a want also for most businesses. It's going to be a need for everybody in the next few years. If you want to work with the big organizations, you need to take all of that stuff in consideration. People don't understand it, and they will be surprised after. But you guys are pioneers in that side, and I want to kind of help you guys to kind of introducing your product about it, and also to get educated. Because the first time that me and you met, I was one of these people about the carbon tax. I'll admit it. I heard the he said, she said, and an understanding. After our conversation, I went deep dive and I want to understand it why and what's going on. And the same thing happened to me on the EV side. When I moved to an electric car, I never thought I was going to be on electric car, but again, I had a good deal, and I'm Jewish in the end of the day, so I had to go on the good deal that I got from the dealership. Uh, but and then I discovered, hey, we really have a problem. Because when I'm going to Ottawa or Montreal or to Windsor, I need to calculate where I'm going to charge. And my car has a pretty good range. But I understand. I said, okay, so how dealers want to push the product? Like there is no infrastructure. Tesla has better infrastructure, but it's specific for one brand. What about the rest? And we have a problem. Where are we going to actually plug it in? Where are we going to get the source for that one? We have the land, we have the availability, we have the ways we can kind
So
of bring everything together.
yeah, what I love about the energy transition right now is I am a capitalist at heart. I've been saying for many, many years, governments were going to facilitate climate change mitigation, and we are seeing it. Punishment through the carbon tax, incentivization through rebates. So it's that carrot and stick. So it was always going to be facilitated by governments, but it was going to be achieved by entrepreneurs. If there is not a financial benefit, if there's not an opportunity for growth and security, then you're not going to be able to get people to sign on, because there are opportunities for growth and security out there. So as a human being and as a father, as an entrepreneur, I'm going to look for opportunities out there. And what I love about the energy transition is it's all about that. It is about the economics of it. Yes, there is the added benefit of having massive amounts of carbon emissions equivalence reduction. So I get to claim moral victory and feel really good about myself. And it is a big portion of what I want to do. I've always been passionate about this. But without the economics, I wouldn't be able to do this. When I sit down with business owners, Andre, we talk to them about three things. And this is what EcoGrid really stands on. We talked to them about three things. We said, as a business owner, you've always had to take seriously risk mitigation. So you've always had to look at your bottom line, and you've had to look at efficiencies. If you had a facility that had old metal halide lighting, you're paying 10 times the amount of electricity for that lighting than converting to smart LED. That's a risk. As energy prices fluctuate, as there's volatility, you are at risk of out of control costs, which means out of control profitability. That's not good for your bottom line. So as a business owner, you've always had to look for areas of efficiency, how to create risk mitigation. Now, again, 91% of business owners understand this. You also have to look for areas of opportunity to reduce your environmental impact. And the reason that's so important to you as a business is because 80% of customers are willing to pay more for something that has less environmental impact. All research shows if your competitor takes seriously their environmental impact and their obligation to climate change mitigation, and you do not, you are subject to market share loss. Businesses understand this. So now they not only have the first pillar, which is in efficiency and risk mitigation, they have the second one of making sure they're not at risk of having out of control carbon or becoming labeled a dirty company and their competitors are not. So there's also that pressure. But what I say to customers all the time, to our businesses and our partners, is why are you going to invest $1 in either of them if you don't have a benefit to your top line revenue as well? And that comes down to that 80% of customers are willing to pay more for something that has less environmental impact. So what we do, and that's why we created ASCII really, was we found that there was a big lacking in the transference of investment dollars into the marketing or the brand amplification of that company, that they are taking seriously these things, that they are investing in these things, that they're creating a positive effect in their environmental impact by taking on these investments. So that's what we got so excited about. And that's what we really became experts at is one, yes, let's find the projects that can create risk mitigation, that reduce your carbon footprint. But most importantly, let's then verify that data, broadcast that data, and track that data year over year over year so we can share with your shareholders and your customers and your employees the investments you've taken on and the impact it's had year over year over year. And that's what's so exciting for us, is that we're creating those long-term partnerships with our clients, that they can see top-line revenue growth from investing in solar energy or smart LED or heat pumps or whatever it might be. That it's not just about risk mitigation, although that's important, but it's also about brand amplification and taking their company forward. And that, if you come to me as a business owner and you talk to me about growth and about opportunity to create more economy, more money, a larger company, I'm going to get excited.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, because you're telling him, all right, so I'll make your company green, so it's more appealing for your client, and also kind of the reputation of your company, and I'm going to make you money, and I will help you out to track it. Most likely I'll say no. I'm joking, but it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Love it.
Greg, with that, me and you can go for a long time, but I want to kind of to break it to main subject because I really want to dig in. I think there is a lot of your knowledge that I want to kind of share with people, and I think you can help a lot. And the stuff that your company is doing, on top of it's a business, you guys have a mission, and it's a very clean one. It's a green mission in a way, but there's also a big financial side to it. That this is the side actually I want to kind of move because everybody understand the big picture about the green energy. People can actually get an assistant with the help of your company of actually how they can actually profit from it financially and invest for
Yes.
the long term. And this is why we discussed that we're going to have a few sessions and we're going to touch on each company separately because they're all similar. Sorry, they're all the same, but very, 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 very different in the same time because they're touching kind of different sections. And again, especially about ASCII because ASCII, this is already something very innovative that you guys created, something that was there will be many more similar application or similar application that existing, but again it's moving to there. A lot of companies are adding that way, but you guys had it like kind of the cherry on the top for it that is making it to be unique compared to others, and it's making it to be headache free in a way because it's almost automatic technically the way it's kind of taking all the information. That is something is very, very unique in the market. So with that, I'm looking forward for our next podcast together. It was a pleasure.
That sounds great, Andre. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to some further deep dives on what we're doing out there.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Greg.